Okay. All right. My guest today is Meghan Blackburn, and she is an Apple Distinguished Educator, good friend of mine. We've got to work on little things together, and she answered the call today. And thank you for that very much, Meghan. It was a very, I'm just so happy you did. It was a kind of a generic call of what is differentiation and how can our district improve in that. And it was something very hard for me in the classroom to tackle and to do well. And I'll be honest with you, it's still an area that, for me personally, is a little uncomfortable to talk to teachers about. I don't know if personalized learning is synonymous with differentiation, but that's a term that we like to use here, and it's something that we're always striving to do, is personalizing it. I want the teachers to understand that we don't believe any purchased curriculum is going to provide us with that personalized. We can't do things. We do like some programs because they keep us on track and they provide good resources. But we know it's that magic of the educator, their ability to improvise and make connections. This is really important. Anyways, I'm going to read what I requested from Meghan. Meghan Blackburn is an educator with more than 14 years of experience in her current role as digital learning coach at Beechwood Middle School in Lexington School District 1. Meghan believes in integrating technology into the classroom in innovative ways that support and engage all learners. Her professional credentials include a master's degree in special education from the University of South Carolina, and she's certified by the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards in Early Childhood Literacy. Meghan is also a member of the Apple Distinguished Educator class of 2017, and she's also a Google certified teacher and coach. She's passionate about sharing her knowledge with her colleagues and with our teachers here in Port Clinton City Schools. And she's presented at lots of conferences all around the world. And we're happy to have her with us at Port Clinton City Schools today. Meghan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am super excited. And I'm going to just jump right in because I only have 30 minutes.
That's right.
So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I did just drop this into this presentation into the chat. So those of you guys that are on, feel free to open that up. And then those who are going to join this after the fact, I'm sure Kelly will have it where you can maybe access it when he gets all of this through the on demand. And I'm going to get us going. So like Kelly said, today we're just talking about, the best learning is personal, making a difference, but also making it doable and beneficial. Those are two things that in the life of a teacher, as more and more things have gotten piled on us, we're going to continue working through. Kelly gave me a great introduction. I don't think I need to add more other to point out, yes, my current role is a technology coach, but I don't know if you caught in my former life, I was a special ed teacher. So differentiation is something that is very passionate. I am very passionate about. It's very near and dear to my heart. I've seen the power of it in the classroom. And so I'm excited about being able to be here today and talk to you all about it. So again, the objective is to just kind of share some ways to make this, to make your instruction more personal to your students, to help increase your results in the classroom, but also understanding that this does not have to be some gigantic overhaul to what you're already doing. Baby steps are the key, and we're going to talk about some small steps that you could implement even as early as tomorrow that make a huge impact to the learners in your room. So I wanted to start and take about 5-10 minutes and just talk about what is differentiation. Kelly brought up that, you hear personalized learning. We've got a lot of terms around this right now on this subject. So just to clarify where I'm coming from, what it means to me, and how I approach it from an instructional coaching position now, but also as a special education teacher. So differentiation is the process of adapting an activity or instruction to make the content acceptable and appropriately rigorous for all students. And I'm going to pause there. It doesn't say for special education students or for ESOL students or for gifted and talented students. It is the idea that we are making this for all students. So one thing that I think makes differentiation so doable is when you really step back and look at it on how it can help all the students in your classroom, not just the students who maybe have this accommodation or that accommodation or need this for an extension in your classroom, but where it helps and challenges all of our students. So there are four actually. We're not going to get into learning environment today. I'm going to stay with just within three, but there are three kind of ways we typically differentiate when you're looking at a lesson. The first is content. When you're looking at a lesson you're going to teach and you're thinking about the students, content is the one that usually comes up first. This is where you take an article and perhaps you find, or you take a topic, and you find multiple articles on different reading levels based on the different students that you have. So that you might have one group that is going to take that challenge reading level, one that's going to take your average, and then one for your struggling students. So that's a quick way to differentiate content. Similar, you may have math terms or formulas. You're going to have students who maybe have fewer formulas, or perhaps they get a cheat sheet to help them work through those actual math formulas versus students who have to memorize them. So that's what you often see as kind of the first level of differentiation. Sometimes that's guided through IEP accommodations. Sometimes you have some ways to just do that within your instruction. The next is process, the process in which you are teaching. So are you teaching one-on-one? Are you teaching small group? Are you teaching whole group? I'd even go as far as, is this when you go into a blended or flipped model, or if you're doing workshop models? So in the way, the process in which we teach. And then the last one is product. This is when you actually change or modify the outcome in which what your students are giving back to you. You might shorten up the length of an essay, or you may give students some extra time to complete those activities. So those are some very just general instructional ways in which we modify differentiate our instruction. This, and just so you guys know that you're tuning in to me, I've linked at the end of this presentation the sites of where all of these resources come from. So if you want to dig into a little bit more about the stuff I'm just really brushing over, I've put some great instructional articles at the end on differentiation. But I really wanted to have more time digging into the text side, so I'm kind of breezing through this. But this is a chart that I found on one of those sites that kind of gives a really nice little overview of the different content areas and how you might differentiate within your content, both the content, the process, and the product. Again, several of those examples we already discussed, and I kind of already mentioned it, but these are just a few more ways that you could easily differentiate instruction in your classroom. So now that we talked about kind of the why or the meat of it, let's talk about making it doable, right? Obviously, I'm here as an Apple Distinguished Educator. I'm going to talk about technology. I'm an instructional coach, but technology has made this lift so much easier for us. It really, really has. Relying on just a few tech tools and things can really help make this not as heavy as a lift for us in education. So the first way I'm going to talk about it is talk about accessibility tools. Sometimes the easiest way for you to differentiate instruction is for you to normalize accessibility tools for your struggling students. What do I mean by that? Well, you have a student who has an accommodation for oral administration. That student needs to be using the text-to-speech tools in your classroom. However, especially middle and high school students really struggle with using their tools because other students aren't, and they feel like outcast in the classroom. So when possible, because I know it's not always possible, but when possible, if we normalize some of our accessibility tools and allow all of our students to use them, perhaps in science or social studies, or even in ELA, depending on what we're testing at the time, it can really help our students. This is also great for students who perhaps don't have this accommodation. I am a very auditory learner. I don't have a learning disability. I never had an IEP that said I needed to have the accommodation for text to speech. However, I love audiobooks. I love listening to them. I process better when I'm able to hear the information. And that's just a characteristic that I learned actually as an adult, working on things through my master's program and stuff like that, because I didn't have that option as a student. Similar to speech to text. I've never been a strong writer, but shocker, I'm a pretty good talker, and I can generate ideas a lot faster in my brain and speaking than I can type. And our students these days, we all know they do not type appropriately. They struggle and they hunt and peck, and they like to use their text languages and things like that. So that really sometimes affects them when they're doing written responses for us in classes. So by normalizing these, what I mean is let everybody use them. And I'm going to hop off my presentation and show you, just in case you haven't seen some of these built-in accessibility features within Google, how easy this is to do in your classroom. So for the first one, text to speech. If you have not had the opportunity, I encourage you one day, Kelly told me you guys have Chromebooks, go down into your menu bar, if I can get mine to pop up, right here where your clock is, and click. Now, this is where your settings comes up. If accessibility doesn't automatically pop up, what you want to do is you want to go into your settings and you want to simply search accessibility. This is the easiest way to find this. So when you do, you want to make sure this right here is toggled on, that accessibility. And that's where, with that on, enabled, you're going to be able to see it down here. So when that's toggled on and you come back down here and click on accessibility, this is where you'll find your built-in accessibility features. You'll notice the first one is Chromevox. Don't mess with that. That's a screen reader. It's a little more than you probably need right now. The ones we're going to touch on today is select to speech and dictation. So with select to speech turned on, meaning my little check is clicked. All I do is click to turn it off. Click to turn it on. It's on. Whoa, very easy, right? So now I've got my student. We're reading an article online. It's a Google form. It's a doc. It's a slide deck. All they have to do is simply highlight what they want read. Oh, my highlighter is doing some funny things here. Hold on. Okay. And then they're going to hit the magnifying search and an S. And it's going to read the word that I have highlighted. Now, if I don't If I want a whole paragraph highlighted, I simply go in and highlight. There's also adjustments where you can highlight paragraphs, adjust speed, adjust voice, things like that. Text to speech, I always encourage teachers. This has come such a long way. The voices are so much more natural. It's easier for students to read. Listening to it, and it really does help. A lot of times for our struggling students, we just need to take away some of those barriers. Instead of me spending all my time figuring out how to decode the words in your passage, you want me to understand this concept. And so taking that one burden off, I can now dig more into what you want me to learn than just trying to struggle through the reading itself. So that's a tool that I always push with my teacher. The second one, the flip of that, where I'm talking about speech to text, I like showing people in Google Docs. So many people do not know this even exists in Google Docs. So Google Docs is our old faithful. We use it for so much. When you go into Google Docs and you go over to tools, I'm not having to turn anything on. All I'm doing is going to tools, and hidden under tools. Oh, wow, come here. There we go. It was taking it a minute. Oh, wait. Wait. It's making a liar out of me. Hold on. I haven't done this since our last update. We literally just updated. There it is. Okay. Whew. Scared me for a minute. I hope y'all saw that. I'm not going crazy. Voice typing, it's right here. So when I click on voice typing, you get a fun little box here. And all I have to do is click on the box. Today, we are talking about differentiation in instruction for all learners in our classroom, period. There we go. I've got my thoughts out and things like that. Now, what I really love is pairing these two tools together. Okay, say you don't want students doing dictation. I got that. But how many of you work with students who never edit any writing? Okay, so what's really nice is now I can use my tool we just learned about, and I can differentiation and instruction for all learners in our classroom. So they can listen to their writing, and a lot of times students will catch their mistakes when they have their writing read back to them. So those are our two ways of using accessibility tools for all learners. I'm stressing that. Go ahead and teach all your students about these tools for them to use in their different classes. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to find where I was. There we go. Talked about that already. Okay, so now with my 5-10 minutes left, I'm going to talk about the other great way of differentiation. And it seems like it's kind of maybe common sense, but it's sometimes harder. And sometimes what happens is we make it harder on ourselves as teachers because we try to do too much. So student choice. Student choice is an amazing way to differentiate. Remember, we talked about that product at the end of our instruction. So any topic that you're teaching, typically at the end, we have our students turn something in to demonstrate their learning to us, okay? So by giving students choice on how to demonstrate their learning to us, not only are we then differentiating, but we're also increasing engagement in our classroom. And there's research after research showing us engagement is key. Now, how do we do that? Okay, so we're writing a report or an essay. Well, instead of writing a report, why don't you do an infographic? Or why don't you make a stop motion using Google Slides or a comic strip? Maybe a Flipgrid. Flipgrid now has some great new updates where students can actually pause, they can do screencasts, add in images. There is a ton there, and my students are really enjoying Flipgrid. So if you haven't checked that one out, look at that again. If you're feeling adventurous, CS First has a bunch of coding projects. I had a dance teacher this year do a coding project. So if she can do it, anybody can do it. But these are, again, great ways to give some students different ways to show what they know. And then the Google Applied Digital Skills, another resource that's out there that's got great little mini lessons that you can pull in technology and student choice on a lot of different topics. Now, what I will say about student choice and what it gets us, and it's actually the article that I linked in for us. So often, what do teachers do? We do choice boards, right? The first thing we do is we go and we make a tic-tac-toe board and we give students all of those choices. And I say all of those, that's 9 choices. And what happens is our students get paralyzed by choices. And so what I've done is I've linked in a great article by the author of the blog Ditch That Textbook, Matt. Oh my gosh, his name just went out the back of my head. Ditch That Textbook, great blog. Sorry, Matt, I'm forgetting your last name. But he wrote a great blog post about a month ago talking about progressive choice boards. So instead of giving our students all these choices, and even as teachers going a little too far out our comfort zone with too many choices, he encourages us to start small. Perhaps it's as easy as you write me an essay or you do an infographic. So you're getting your writers and your visual learners into projects. Then maybe you could branch out into, okay, essay, infographic, and video through Flipgrid. So don't be scared to start small with student choice within where you're comfortable and let your projects grow, because even your students need those safety nets. You don't want to throw all these options at them and then not be able to actually get back to the source of the project or what they want to do on the topic because they're just frozen by all of these choices. So again, student choice is a great way to help differentiate instruction in your classroom. And as I said, I'm going to skip the little questions. On the end of the slides, these are the 3 articles I mentioned on differentiation. Great resources just on the behind, the how, the what, and the why of differentiation. And then this is the article I mentioned from Ditch That Textbook about the progressive choice boards, a great resource for anyone. So I, by my time, have about 5 minutes left, which I did want to try to rush through and leave 5 minutes because I felt like I wanted to touch on these things, but I know that you guys might have questions today and wanted to give us a little bit of time for those.
Thank you, Megan.
Okay, let's see. I see Kelly in the chat. I don't see any other questions. I know you lovely ladies.
My head off, Megan. Hey, thank you very much, Megan. I'll see if anybody has any questions. I was just saying I didn't know about that voice to text feature in Google Docs. I know a lot of my students, their vocabulary far exceeded their spelling. And when they wrote, they would often choose a lesser word. And so that's a nice tip. And there's some other good ones in there as well. I like how you broke it down. It seems more doable to me now. And I think if anything, you've made me less concerned. It seems doable, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It seems tackable. I'll hit mute to see if anybody has a question for you, and I hope they do.
Thanks, Megan. Really cool tools. Some that I've heard of, some that I have forgotten were there. And I like the idea of the progressive choice boards from Matt Miller. Yeah. He's really good. It's just now, I guess, a matter of finding the time, especially this year.
Yes, and time is so hard on all of us. And that's why when Kelly and I were even talking and planning this, I really wanted to touch on and talk about those accessibility tools. I think not only does it help with your differentiation, but again, as a special educator for life, you really can change a student's life by encouraging them to use those tools. That technology is everywhere for them now, which was not always the case. And the job market and things really lend to our students who can use those tools independently. So, but our kids have trouble advocating for themselves. That's across the board.
And also a lot of us that have gone to PD over the years, those used to be add-ons and extensions, and now they're right there.
Yes, yes, and they work so flawlessly with so many things. I was working, I don't know what your ESOL population looks like, but I was working with a teacher the other day, and we were actually using Google Translate to translate assignments for the students, but the student could not read in the native language, but then we were using the speech to text to actually then have it read to the student. So it's so cool watching how these things work so well together, no longer having to be this add-on, that add-on, this add-on.
Megan, I'm curious, how is time set aside or scheduled in a day for you to work alongside teachers? Or do you just appear in classrooms?
A little bit of both. So I actually am we are very fortunate. We do have my position at every middle and high school level. And so we're trying to get back into a routine. I do a lot of pop-ins where I just kind of go through and see what's going on. But then I try to make the planning meetings so that I can hear the units of studies that are coming up and work a lot with my teachers on kind of similar, these choice board activities. We're currently an IB candidate school. So we're going through that process, and a lot of IB units are project-based. And so we're digging in deeply on how do we take those multiple choice question tests that we've been doing and really add some student choice and project-based type things to our summative assessments.
That's cool. So you just look for ways, like you hear some plan and you're like, hey, I could help you with this, and kind of jump in there. That's nice.
Yep.
Almost out of time. Anybody else want to ask Megan a question? We're very blessed to have her with us today. She's a treasure.
What are IB schools?
It's International Baccalaureate schools. It's a program, and I'm not as well versed as I probably should be, so I'm gonna probably put my foot in my mouth talking about it. But it is a philosophy of teaching, of looking at the whole learner and making them global thinkers.
Yeah, it was Eileen. It was I don't claim to know that much about it either, but as prepared on our last, how they did the state report card up until this year, that was a category that we got measured in progress for, or prepared for success measure. And so it's one we talked about. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what schools do that. Well, you got some great comments in the chat room, Megan. And if I'm going to share the PowerPoint or the slide deck that you shared with us, and some of our teachers may reach out to you with some questions.
Yes, they are welcome. I have my email address and my Twitter handle on the slide about me. I am not as involved in the Twitter as much as I used to be. I'm trying to get back into it. But email, definitely, I'm on it all the time. So if you have any questions or even want to brainstorm some ideas, please reach out.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you really did kind of encourage us to get some ideas. There's a lot of discussion here about choice boards and things like that. And so it'll be interesting to see what people come up with. Megan, thank you so much. I know that was so fast, 30 minutes, but that's kind of our recipe right now. So thank you. Thank you all for attending as well. All right. Well, Megan, I'll send you a text in a little bit, and I will give you a shout out on Twitter, which I hope encourages you to jump on every now and then.
Thanks,
And,
Kelly.
thank you so much. And if
No
I can do
problem.
any help to your district, please reach out to me as well. You are awesome. All right. Good seeing everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Kelly.